I'm Eric Frenkiel. I'm one of the co-founders at MemSQL. MemSQL is a distributed in-memory database. We basically place the data into memory for efficient processing with a focus on analytics. It's kind of like college all over again. When you apply, there's an application. When you go in, you basically look at, sort of the application as a process. What have you done before? What are you doing now? And kind of assess the product market fit. So it's kind of like a new business plan, but without sort of the whole sections on finances. It's about the idea itself. So it's a very competitive process. I mean, I think it's more competitive than getting into like undergrad, MIT, Harvard, Stanford. The acceptance rate is quite low. I think when you're going to apply to Y Combinator and you're going to write that application, you really want to have a very, very strong sort of argument about why this company should exist. And it could be data-based. You could have a great sort of growth story already. It could be just an idea, in which case you have to explain why hasn't this been done yet, and why are we the team to do it? So it's a very, very basic sort of application. I think the application exists as much as a framework for the entrepreneur to assess what they should be focusing on. So you have a very, very short byline about who you are and what you're doing. And then it basically walks you through a SWOT analysis of what might competitors be doing, for example. What are some opportunities that also are pursuing? So I think it's effectively a way to give the entrepreneur a framework to assess, is this idea a good idea? And then you can actually go into the program and get that feedback. It's not a quote-unquote incubator per se. You don't actually have a shared space that you work side by side with other entrepreneurs. You spend that time kind of building on your stuff, whether that's in your own private environment, your own shared space, other places. But you go into those sorts of meetings and dinners with this sort of focus on what takeaways can we get. So it's a very light touch in terms of the program itself. There's a lot of classes that happen outside of those dinners about fundraising, about HR, and some other basic things around startups. But for the most part, it's not that traditional incubator. The funny thing is the food's awful. You're there to kind of like learn, and the food is there to kind of like get some nutrients into you, and then you go right back to work. So I've had a lot of fun at these dinners. I mean, you listen to some of the likes of Mark Zuckerberg, for example, Michael Moritz, distinguished individuals that donate their time and actually learn from the entrepreneurs themselves, and the entrepreneurs learn back just about how to actually do this. And I think it's just a lot of energy in the room. So you see a lot of great things happen in this space. So that's one amazing thing from the program for sure. So talking about like what happens post Y Combinator, there's a shift away from obviously the weekly dinners and the sort of the office hours, and it's kind of like leaving the nest. I mean, PG has another brood every 6 months. And when you shift away from that sort of context of weekly sort of engagements, you are independent, you are building a company. And I think it's important still to kind of stay in touch with your class and stay in touch with PG. So in terms of actually like, getting that help, don't be afraid to actually still ask questions and reach out. So whether that is complementing your team with advisors who have done this before is a great example. A lot of startups actually go and pull advisors in after they graduate from Y Combinator just to maintain that, again, that same sort of like feedback loop. Other things that are extremely helpful, of course, are continuing to rapidly develop. In terms of what consumer startups do, a lot of startups actually shift to daily pushes. So you're still, pushing code, every day. For us, we have a different schedule, but we still push code very, very quickly, comparison to other like large enterprise companies. So post YC, you really are independent, but the network is still there. So when you were in that class, you had 100 other folks, 200 other folks also going through that program. And I think that they all moved to San Francisco or Mountain View or Palo Alto for the most part. And there's a strong network out there. So keep on tapping that, and you'll come across great business opportunities or just advice in general. So I mean, there are some big takeaways from Y Combinator. I think first and foremost is iterate quickly. It's rapid prototyping, rapid iteration. Every week is quite different. Some entrepreneurs actually ditch their idea 1 week to the next. There can be a couple pivots for certain teams. So I think that's very interesting to see. When we started our company going in, there was no pivot. We just knew what we had to do. But if you're doing a consumer company, it's very easy to shift that technology into a different setting. The second thing I would say is obviously the network. It's very important to actually sort of listen to others. And I think going to office hours is a great example where PG actually does a lot of listening in those things, where he just kind of absorbs and then kind of focuses on the important takeaways for you after you speak. And third, I would say is just the sort of the stealth element. So even though you go into Y Combinator, he respects the right to privacy for the startup. Some are still very early, in no rush to kind of go out there and get listed on any publication. For us, we stayed in stealth mode for almost a year and a half. We were one of the last to launch, but again, some products just take more time.